anti-Hindu snakes in the den of rogues and thieves, which is Harvard, previously being bred for export, are now going to be expanding to breed on home turf in India. Is that a oversimplification or fair assessment?
Well, I will also give a shout out of support and appreciation to Snakes in the Ganga. Having read some extracts from it, I haven't yet got the book here in the United Kingdom, but having read some extracts of it, it identified a phenomenon, didn't it? And all of a sudden, we began to see snakes in the Potomac, snakes in the Hudson, snakes in the Thames, not just snakes in the Ganga. And Harvard, I'm afraid you're right. It just elaborates and explicates so clearly for us. It lays out for us exactly Harvard's role in causing disharmony, discord, and suffering. And that's a major concern. You know, if we have a look at the product of Harvard, Harvard created bodies of supposedly knowledge and academic infrastructures, people, departments, schools of thought, all of which seem to have had a detrimental impact upon Bharat, and the intentions, I don't think, have changed. If we have a look at some of their output, we talked about George Bush and we talked about Tony Blair, Sir Tony Blair, who was given a knighthood for his work in Iraq. America has produced similar entities. You know, we've had Sheldon. There's a wonderful British term, Sheldon Pillock, I think would be more appropriate, but let's not abandon decorum and still call him Sheldon Pollock. His pronunciation of Sanskrit terms is almost as bad as my pronunciation of some of the English names. But he mistranslated the text with an incredible lack of ability. You know, it was just such a crude, it was almost like a neophyte masquerading as an adept in terms of his control of Sanskrit. And yet he became the dominant voice. He became the guiding light and directed the understanding of Sanskrit, not from a pure understanding of Sanskrit, but a weaponized understanding of Sanskrit designed to cause rifts, harmony, designed to appropriate very much in the mold of the British colonialists when they came to Bharat. An awful history there. And do we want those sorts of people to be nurtured in Bharat itself? Do we want these people to determine what the next generation of Bharatiya Sanskritists are going to be like? My goodness, that's a scary thought. And others, similar sort of poor quality pedagogy, poor quality academic research, and poor quality publications. Isabel Wilkerson as another ideal example. Her recent work, appalling cast, and yet she had absolutely done virtually no research. It was almost as though somebody had forgotten that the concept of confirmation bias needs to be borne in mind by any academic, any researcher. You have to have a look at your own biases. She didn't. It is merely one enormous, weighty tome of confirmation biases, and then some ideas which don't bear scrutiny. Just some of the American experience, the lenses through which American academics look at the American society were the same spectacles that she donned to look at Indian society. And it's that colonialist gaze. So very, very poor quality academia is the output, and we do not want to see that nurtured and replicated in Bharat.
You know, you mentioned Isabella Wilkerson. It just reminded me of something I heard J.S. Deepak say. He said, "Why would I want to listen to a former slave weaponizing caste to pave the way for the creation of future slaves?" I found that quite interesting. And although I must add, just for context, he did say, and we would agree too, that we empathize and sympathize with the African Americans because we've both shared similar ravages of colonial history. But that doesn't legitimize a shallow, agenda-driven piece of work with very little understanding of the complexities and diversities in Indian societal structures, just like you mentioned.
Firstly, a wonderful phrase from J.S. Deepak in that one short sentence of maybe a dozen words. He captures more wisdom and a deeper understanding than Isabel Wilkerson does in her whole book. And it's I totally agree with what you've also said about shared history. We do not have Indian scholars, we do not have Hindu civilizational scholars who would feel themselves qualified to pass judgment and look at the African American rediscovery of their identity, of their journey towards healing and their journey towards recovering from incredible suffering. We do not have scholars who would do that. We would deem it to be so disrespectful and insensitive. And yet Isabel Wilkerson is a great example of the American equivalent of Macaulay's children. Her name, her attitude, her approach, her orientation, everything about her fills me with pain and sadness, because she has no recollection and no understanding of the manner in which her being and her identity has been colonized. We understand that because of all of the work that has been done to identify what Macaulay meant. And it's a shame. It's a shame when a person from a slave community would cross lanes into our lane, as it were, with big boots and stomp around with a total lack of sensitivity and totally unaware of the harm that she has done and continues to do. We have been very actively engaged in trying to undo the consciousness of caste. The caste consciousness is something that was deliberately engineered and then imposed through violence and force into Bharat by Euro-Christian British colonialists. And that consciousness is something that was then seeded in classic divide and rule, and we have been struggling to uproot it from our consciousness. And what did Isabel Wilkerson do? Plaster it over a whole continent in the United States. And it's really harmed us. It's set us back a long way. But we will have to work to undo that caste consciousness there as well. And she too is a product of the American academic institutions. And there was talk of her, I think it was a Booker Prize or a Pulitzer Prize or something like this. But it's such shoddy academic work, and I don't think that will happen now. But yes, Snakes in the Ganga, please, everybody, do read it. And if the Ministry of Education in Bharat haven't yet managed to give a copy of it to every single one of their administrators and bureaucrats, please, somebody send them copies. It's vital reading for this sort of decision making.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.